Hello guys and welcome. In this tutorial we're gonna make the snake game we used to play on Nokia phones. So I'm gonna show you guys the game. So here's my snake. Whenever I eat the food, the scores increment. So this is cool. Now we have to know the logic about moving the snake, about everything before we go through the coding. So let's see the logic. The first thing is to create our snake. So the snake is an array and we're gonna use a for loop. We initiated the I variable to 3, and then while I is greater than or equal to 0, we decrement the I by 0. And in the snake array we'll get this, the X position and the Y position of every cell. So the snake array will have something like this. So for snake 0 the X position is 3 and the Y is 0 and so on. The Y position remains 0, so we are creating 4 horizontal cells, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. Now the first entry is our snake head and the last one as our snake tail. In an HTML file, in a canvas, our snake will look like this. 4 horizontal cells, their coordinates, and this is the head and this is the tail. Now to move the snake, all we have to do is to remove the tail and add a new head. So simple. Now to remove the tail we're gonna use a function, pop function. The pop function removes the last entry of an array. Our snake is an array, the pop function will remove the last entry, so we're gonna remove the tail. And then we're gonna add a new head. But there is 2 things we have to know before creating a new head. The position of this head, the previous head, and the direction. So we have to set this coordinates to a new variable, new head.x and new head.y. And then based on the direction, for example, if the direction was right, we say new head.x++. We increment the X position by 1. If it was up, we will say new head.y, not the X, and so on. So we change one of these based on the direction, and then our new head will have this values. The X position is 4 and the Y position is 0 because the direction was right. Now this new head we will add it to our snake in the beginning. So for that we're gonna use the snake.unshift function. This unshift function will take the new head and add it to the beginning of our snake array. Now this code will give us something like this. The pop function will erase or remove the tail, and the snake that unshift new head will add a new head that has a 4 X position and 0 for the Y position. Now this is our new tail and this is our new head. Again, moving the snake, we have to remove the tail and add a new head, and so on. Now let's go and write our code. Now I will go and create our project, a folder called snake game, and then inside my folder I will create 2 files. The first one as a snake.html, and the second one is snake untitled.js for our JavaScript code. Now I will go to open my project in my text editor. I'm using brackets in this case. Now inside my snake.html I will create a basic HTML file. Inside the head I will create a title, snake game, and then inside the element body I will create our canvas. The canvas is where our game will live. I'm giving it an ID canvas and the width equals to 250 pixels. The same for the height, it equals to 250 pixels. Our canvas is a rectangle, and then I will link my HTML file to my script snake.js. Now let's run our HTML file. I'm gonna add a style, just the background color for my canvas. So I will select my canvas and the background color, and I'm using the black color here. In my snake.js I will load a function, anonymous function, using the window.onload method. So whenever my body is loaded, this function will be run. I'm gonna create a variable which will select my canvas. So get element by ID canvas, and then a context for my canvas. We'll say canvas dot get context 2D, 2 dimensions, and then I'm gonna create a canvas width variable and the canvas height variable, so it will be easy to use them in the future. Canvas height equals to canvas dot height, and now I'm gonna create two variables for my snake. So my snake has a width and a height, so I'm gonna say snake width equals to 10 pixels and variable snake height equals to 10 pixels. So my snake here is formed by cells, rectangle, so I'm gonna use fill style. So my context here, I will give it a white color, and to draw or to paint a rectangle I'm gonna use the fill rect function. I will give it X position and the Y position, then the width and the height of the rectangle. So as you can see here to the right in my web browser, I created a rectangle with the 10 pixels in the width and 10 pixels in the height. Now I'm gonna use a stroke for my rectangle, the first one. So I'm gonna use the stroke rect function. I'm gonna give it the same values and I gave in the fill rect function. Now I used a stroke for my rectangle. And now in general I will say 1 multiplied by snake width and 1 multiplied by snake height for the X position and the height and the Y position. The idea here is to simply moving our snake. Like if I change the numbers here to 2, I moved my cell to another place in the canvas. So in general we will say this is the X position and this is the Y position. Same to the stroke. Now we will create a function that will draw our snake. I'm going to draw snake. The draw snake will take two parameters, the X position and the Y position, and here is the code. Now I'm gonna try to run the function drawSnake. I'm given some values, some random values, for example 4 from 4, and now this is the result in my web browser. So just by changing the x and y, I will change the position. Now I will create our snake array. My snake array by default will contain 4 rectangles or 4 cells. For that I will use a full loop to create that. So I'm gonna create first 2 variables. The first one is the length equals 4 and the snake equal, and I'm gonna declare my snake array. So I'm gonna say 4 for the variable. I'm gonna initiate the I variable equals length minus 3, because as we all know, the computer always starts from 0. Then while I is greater than or equals to 0, we decrement I by 1 yeah. Now the snake dot push function will push this object to my snake every time. So the x will equals to I and y will remain 0. By doing this, I just created 4 horizontal cells. Now the draw function here, the draw function, it is the function that will draw everything in the canvas. So the first thing we're gonna draw is our snake. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna use a for loop. So I mentioned here that the I is less than snake.length, because the snake array will change its length every time in our game. So I'm gonna declare 2 variables, the x position and the y position of every cell from our snake array. Then I'm gonna draw them using the draw snake. So I'm given the draw snake, the x position and the y position. Now if I run the draw function, this is what I got. But in my game I will run this function every time. So I'm gonna use the set under function, and this will draw my this will run my function every 60 milliseconds. Now we have to move our snake. First now we have to know the snake head position. So we will get the snake x position and the y position of our snake head. I'm gonna add a comment. It's really useful to use comments in your code. Now after I got the snake position, I have to remove the tail, and for that I'm gonna use the snake.pop function, and then I'm gonna create a new variable, a new head, that will make a new head for our snake. So x it equals to snake x and y equals to snake y. So whenever I remove a tail, I will add a new head. The snake.pop will remove the last entry of our array snake, which means the tail, and I'm gonna set a new variable, new head, that will contain our future snake head position. But before creating our new head, we have 2 conditions. The first one is what is the direction, and the second one is where was the previous head. I will take an example here. For example, if the direction was right, we're gonna say snake x++. If and now I have to add the new head to our array using the AndShift method. So the AndShift function will add the new head to the beginning of our array. Now as you can see in my web browser, I just moved the snake, but there's still its traces, so I'm gonna clear the canvas every time I draw something. I will use declare rect function. So this will clear our canvas every time. And now, as you can see in my web browser, my snake is moving to the right because I said snake x++. Now I'm gonna add f conditions based on the direction. What is the direction? And then I will move my snake to that direction. So I'm gonna create a bunch of f conditions. For the first one is a left direction, then the top or up direction, then the right, and then to the bottom means down. If the direction was left, the snake will change the snake x minus minus, we decrement the snake x by 1. But if it was up, then we say snake y, not x, snake y minus minus, and then snake x plus plus, and snake y plus plus, because we always go from the top to the bottom and from the left to the right. Now I have to set the default direction, so I will have to create a new variable. Default direction, var direction equals right. So the default direction for my game is the right. So as you can see here in my web browser, it's going to the right. If I say down, and I'm gonna refresh my page, then it's going to down. Cool. I'm gonna let it to right. Now we will have to read the user's directions. So for that we're gonna add an event listener. So we'll say document that add event listener and key down. So whenever the player hits a key on the keyboard, the get direction function will be fired up. So we say function get direction, and the get direction will have an event, and the event is the key down. So we will get the key code. So we will say e.key code. So every key in the keyboard has a code. For example, the left arrow has a key code equals to 37. So based on that, we will know which key the user or the player pressed. So the codes are 37 and 38 and 39. Now if the key code was 37, then the direction is left. If it was 38, means the user or the player just pressed the up arrow, and if it was 40, he pressed the down arrow. Now I can control my snake, but if I click on the opposite direction, it goes there. I don't want that, and to fix it, it's so simple. So I'm gonna say if the user pressed the left key and the direction was not right, then the direction is left. The same if the direction was not down, then the direction can be up. And again, if the direction was not left, then the direction now can be right. And for the last, if the direction was not up, then the direction can be down. Now I won't have that problem anymore. Now the next step is when our snake hits a wall, we have to end the game. It's a game over. If the snake hits the wall, any wall in the game, it's a game over. So F snake X is less than 0, means the snake hit the left wall. The snake y is less than 0, means the snake hit the top wall. And if the snake x is greater than or equal to canvas width divided by snake width, means the snake hit the left wall. And the last, if the snake hit the bottom wall. Then I have to reload my page. I will say location dot reload. So this function will reload our file every time the snake hits the wall, as you can see here. Now let's create some food for our snake, and when he eats the food, it will get bigger. So I'm gonna create or generate a food randomly. So I'm gonna use two mathematical functions. The first one is the math round. It gives the bigger value or number of a float, and then the math random will give us random numbers between two numbers. So the first one or it will give us a number between 1 and 25. So we'll say the canvas width divided by snake width and 1. So here the math random will give us values or numbers between 1 and 25. The same thing for the y position. So this whole thing will generate position x and y positions for our food. So let's draw the function. Let's create a function to draw our food. We will use the same function as we used for the draw snake. So I'm just gonna go and copy the code. And here I will just change the color. I will set it to yellow. And then I'm gonna call the draw function inside my draw function, draw food. I'm gonna say draw food. I'm gonna give it two parameters, the food.x and the food.y. Now I have the food, but my snake goes through it, so I have to add some new codes, some new line codes. Now if our snake eats the food, we will say if the snake x equals to the food.x and the snake y equals to food.y. It means our snake head has the same position as the food. So that's how we know that the snake ate the food. And then we will instead of removing the tail, we will just add a new head. So if the snake didn't add the food, we will remove the tail. But if our snake eat the food, will generate a new food. And then every time we will create a new head. The difference here is when our snake eats the food, we will create a new head, but we don't remove the tail. But if he didn't eat the food, we just remove the snake and add a new head. Now I'm gonna try that. Yeah, my snake now is getting bigger. But I have a problem in my code. I didn't have to say to the math random to give me values between 1 and 25. This should be between 1 and 24. So my food will stay inside the canvas. Now the last thing is adding a check collision function. when my snake hits itself, it should be a game over. Now the check collision will get three things. The first one is the snake head X position and the Y position, and the array is our snake array. So I will initiate I to 0, and while I is less than our snake that length, we increment I by 1. So we will go through all our snake array and check if there is any of these cells has the same position as the head. Now if that's true, means there's a collision, so we're gonna say return true. It means there is a collision. But if it's not, else we're gonna say return false, so there is no collision. We're gonna add now the function to our code where it says it's game over. So we're gonna say or check collision. Now for the array we're gonna say, or for this for the X we're gonna say snake X, for the Y we're gonna say snake Y, and the array is our snake. Now I'm gonna try to make our snake bigger to test if that works. Let's go. And now, yep, it works. Now when I hit myself, or the snake hits itself, it's a game over. Now I'm gonna add a score to my game. So I'm gonna create a variable called score. I'm gonna use the default score is 4 because my snake has 4 cells. And then whenever my snake hits the food means I'm gonna increment my score by 1. So I'm gonna say score plus plus. And then I'm gonna create a function to draw the score. I'm gonna call it function draw score. The draw score will get one parameter. It's the score variable. So I'm gonna give it a style, which means a color. It will be a yellow color, just like the food. And then the text, I'm gonna paint the text. So I'm gonna say fill text. So we will give the string, the thing we wanna the output, and then the X position, and then the Y position. So we're gonna input the score, and then the position is 5, so 5 pixels from the left, and canvas 8 minus 5 from the top. Now I'm gonna take the draw score and add it to my code just after the snake.unshift. So the draw score will get the score. Let's try that. Now my score is there. So the score is 4. Whenever I eat the food, now the score is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now it's working. But the font size is smaller. So I have to fix that. I'm gonna say context at font equals, so I'm gonna use the 15 pixels for the font size. The font family is Verdana. Let's check that. Yep. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like us on Facebook.